Hi there, welcome back to another Kalyova Top 10. Last time I discussed the top 10 closers of all time, a very widely viewed video. This time around, I'm going to discuss who I think are the definitive top 10 left fielders in Major League Baseball of all time. Just to give you some clarification on my list, there are some players that did play a lot of games in left field that I did not actually put on the list. Two notable ones: Babe Ruth, Stan Musial. Their primary position, where they played more games than they did in left field, are different. So I excluded them from this list. So if any of you are wondering why Babe Ruth and Stan Musial are not on my all-time top 10 left fielders, it's because they're going to be on probably a different list. So with that being said, I looked for many types of things, mainly kind of like hits, batting average, slugging percentage, OPS, WAR, their defensive capabilities, how long they played, just a few things that would kind of set them apart from their contemporaries. And I just kind of wanted to look for similarities that I could kind of maybe tell the biggest difference and see who's better at what for the ranking system. Now, for the rankings 1 through 10, that's debatable. I think from like 3 to 10, but 1 and 2 I think are pretty solid. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. So let's get started. Coming in at my number 10 is a guy with probably one of the greatest baseball names ever, Goose Gossage. This guy had about a 66 WAR average. He won 2 World Series, one with the one with the Washington Senators at the time and one with the Tigers. He also had 2,700 hits. He was a .316 batting average, 500 slugging guy. The number 10 spot was probably the hardest to give or take. There was about 5 guys vying for that spot. So I chose Goose Gossage. He's one of the best left-handed hitters of his day and of all time, in my opinion. Goose Gossage, number 10. Coming in at number 9 is a guy that is very comparable to Goose Gossage. However, he played in a much different age. He was second in the votes for Rookie of the Year in 1975. He lost to Fred Lynn. It was his teammate, Jim Rice, as my number 9 choice. He has a slightly lower, actually not slightly, but a much lower WAR than Goose Gossage. He comes in around 47 WAR. But his numbers are very favorable and comparable. He has 128 or so OPS plus, 382 home runs, 1,400 plus RBIs. He never won a World Series. He did win an MVP in '78. And I think Jim Rice is one of those most consistent left fielders that has ever played the game. He had to follow up Ted Williams and Carl Yastrzemski in Boston. I think he did a wonderful job doing that. And needless to say, he is my first Red Sox in the list, which there will be more. So that's my number 9, Jim Rice. Coming in at number 8 is one of my favorite Pittsburgh Pirate players of all time. Here's a trivia question. Can you name any other player that has led the league consecutively for 7 seasons in home runs? That's tough to do. Number 8 is none other than Ralph Kiner. From 1946 until 1952, he led the National League in home runs every season. Now his career was cut short. He didn't really play 17 plus seasons, so he only amassed about 369 home runs. However, if he would have been able to continue his career for a long time, I would have been sure that he would probably would have achieved the 500 home run status. However, his power numbers are so above and beyond anybody for an 8-year stretch or so that I could not exclude him from this. I think he is the definitive player of power hitting left fielders. There's nobody else that could compare to him in his day. He never won an MVP, which I thought was kind of weird. And the reason I don't think he won, though, is because he played in the era of the Dodgers with Campanella and Jackie Robinson, Duke Snider. So I think the Dodgers had more of the popularity, and so that's why Kiner didn't really get the MVP number 1 votes anyway. He did get voted for MVP every year, just not number 1. So that's my number 8, the home run, power hitting Ralph Kiner. Okay, Cardinal fans, my number 7, this one's for you, but it's probably not who you're thinking of. Not the base stealer, not the Flash, whatever you want to call that person. It's none other than Ducky Joe Medwick, number 7, one of the greatest right-handed bats of his day. 1937 MVP, lifetime 324 hitter, 505 slugging percentage, OPS of 134, won a World Series, pretty good at defense in some measures, 55.6 WAR, 1,300 plus RBI. He was what made the latter-day Gas House Gang. He was one of their major bats. And for a long time, this guy was the best left fielder out there in the National League during his day. So Ducky Joe Medwick definitely deserves a spot in the top 10. My number 7. Okay, my number 6, we're going from the Cardinals to the Cubs. From 1962 to 1973, this individual played 150 plus games every season in that span. He had 426 lifetime home runs, 4092 slugging, 138 OPS plus, 1961 Rookie of the Year, 2,700 plus hits, 1,400 plus RBIs, a WAR of 63.5. My number 6 is none other than Billy Williams. Now this guy goes under the radar on a lot of lists because he doesn't have the gaudy, outfield numbers as some of the other guys do. But Billy Williams is one of the greatest left fielders of all time, and probably in a lot of people's lists a little bit higher, because what he could do for almost 2 decades was unthinkable. He was just a clear example of consistency, of what it took to be a great left-handed hitter, was a Cub favorite. So Billy Williams definitely deserves a spot in the top 10. My number 6. Okay, for my number 5, I'm just going to throw you some numbers out here. 452 home runs, 462 slugging, 130 OPS plus. He won an MVP. He won a Triple Crown, 646 doubles, 1,844 RBIs, 3,419 hits, 7 Gold Gloves. None other than Carl Yastrzemski. Good old Yaz, number 2 Red Sox guy on this list. Carl Yastrzemski took over for Ted Williams. Now those are big shoes to fill, and he did it right off the bat. Carl Yastrzemski was for 2.5 decades the Boston guy. Now, he never won a World Series, unfortunately, and they, didn't win one until 2004. Everybody knows that story. However, there were a couple times he had a shot, didn't do it. You cannot talk about left field and not talk about Carl Yastrzemski. He is one of the greatest. He played almost longer than anybody else on this list. I think he's probably the highest tenure player on this list. And I'm a Yankees fan, but they don't really have many left fielders besides Babe Ruth, who is not on this list, that would come in, that would fall in the top 10. The Red Sox have like 4 or 5 legitimate guys that you can probably put out there. So Carl Yastrzemski is by far one of the greatest of all time. He's my number 5. When you have a career and you get 73 hits away from 3,000, that's kind of a heartbreaker. However, this guy, towards the end of his career, the last 3 or 4 seasons, was trying to get there. He just really kind of fell short. So he wound up with 2,927 hits. Man, bummer. However, that's a really good number. He also had 6 seasons of 200 plus hits. He played for one of the greatest athletic teams of all time from 1927-8 or so until 1931 or 32. He is none other than Bucketfoot Al Simmons. Aloysius Simmons of the Philadelphia A's. One of my favorite players ever. He did have 2 World Series victories. He had 1,800 plus RBIs. He also, astonishingly, had 12 seasons where he had over 100 RBIs in those seasons. That is an incredible statistic. A 68.7 WAR. His defense still was pretty good. I give it about a B-. Overall, 300 home runs, 334 lifetime batting average. Now, I did put him above Carl Yastrzemski, and I think there's probably got to be some debate on that or not. Or there's probably got to be some debate on that. I get that. I understand. The Red Sox fans are probably going to say, hey, how come Yaz can't beat Al Simmons? Yaz had a much longer career. I give him that. And Simmons kind of did more so with a little bit less number of years. And that's kind of why I pushed him a little bit past Yastrzemski. But my number 4, by far, one of the greatest right-handed bats to play the game is Al Simmons. Now we're getting to the cream of the crop. These are the 3 greatest left fielders out there. I really think this is hard to debate. If you want to find some way to do that, go ahead and be my guest. Now the order, that can probably be debatable. However, number 3, I'm going to pick Rickey Henderson, the man of steel. 1,406 stolen bases, number 1 all time. 2,295 runs, number 1 all time. Over 3,000 hits, almost 300 home runs. OBP of 401, OPS of 127. WAR. This is where it gets astronomical. This is where the top 3 jump a mile marker ahead of numbers 4 through 6. An all-time WAR of 110.8. He won an MVP. He won a World Series. I mean, this guy is one of the greatest players of all time. If I ever make a top 10 players ever, he will probably be within the range of that list. Rickey Henderson is not only the greatest base stealer, run scorer, he's one of the best all-time guys at getting on base. Still was a lifetime, I think, 279, so we're going to say around a 280 hitter for his career. Rickey Henderson, by far a great personality, a wonderful baseball player. He is my number 3 left fielder of all time. Now we are down to the final 2, and many of you that are watching this, if you made it through all the way, probably know who is number 1 and 2. You don't know what the order is, but maybe you're guessing. Before we get to that though, I want to say some honorable mentions, just so I can convince you that I actually did research this and really thought about these guys and putting them in the top 10, but they just fell short just a little bit. The first guy that fell short, and I had him on my list a little bit, but he got bumped out by Goose Gossage, was Lou Brock, avid base stealer. I really like Lou Brock, but just some of the other categories that I was looking at just didn't match up a little as much as I thought Goose Gossage did. The next guy, Manny Ramirez, another fellow Boston Red Sox guy. Now, I didn't put him on there because he didn't really start playing left field until he got to the Red Sox. He played right field when he was with Cleveland. So I think Manny was a great hitter, not so much of a great fielder. I think that is pretty self-evident. However, I did really heavily consider putting him on here because his lifetime numbers are great. So, however he achieved them, if you want to argue that in the comments, I understand that. But he just really didn't make it for me. Another guy that I really wanted to kind of put on here and give some mention to, Minnie Minoso, another groundbreaking player. Next was a more modern day guy, and I really thought hard about this one. He almost kind of got put in there. St. Louis Cardinal, former Rocky, and Oakland Athletic for a bit, Matt Holliday. Matt Holliday was really close because he was really, really great. And there's tons of other guys on here, this list that I kind of maybe thought about shouting out, but there's one more I want to give recognition to, and it's this guy right here, Shoeless Joe Jackson. I really, really wanted to put him on my list, but he just didn't really play enough games in his career to be really qualified for this. However, if you look at his offensive numbers, they are insane. Joe Jackson is one of my favorite players ever. I really wish I could have found a place to put him on here, but I didn't. So that being said, let's get to the final top 2. All right, here it is, folks. I'm going to be honest with you. I really think this guy is quite possibly one of the greatest players ever. His career is very controversial, and I think that there are people out there that might be mad at me that I put him on this list. You shouldn't be. Barry Bonds, number 2. Lifetime leader of home runs with 762. 607 lifetime slugging, 182 OPS plus, 500 plus stolen bases, almost 2,000 RBI, a 444 OPP, a 1.051 OPS, 7-time MVP, 8-time Gold Glover. I mean, this guy is amazing. 162.4 WAR. Man, that's highest on this list. Nobody's even near that, not even close. However, I refrain from putting him at number 1, and here's why. I think that the shrouded controversy of his career dampens it just a little bit. I do think that he's equally as good as my number 1 choice, but he just misses the cusp of greatness, I think, of being the number 1 left fielder of all time. I think the guy that beat him models it more so. However, I do have a respect for Barry Bonds in the regards of what he did on the field. Off of it is a different story that is a different topic of discussion. But offensively, defensively, Barry Bonds, without a doubt, can be argued as the number one left fielder of all time. But for me, he's number 2. Number 1, I think you have probably guessed this right by now. It's my 3rd Red Sox player on the list. It's a man that never donned his cap after hitting a home run, not even when he hit a home run for his last at bat. None other than Ted Williams. The greatest hitter that ever lived. Ted Williams is clearly that. 344 lifetime batting average, 482 OBP, 634 slugging, 1.16 OPS, higher than Barry Bonds, I might add. OPS plus of 190, higher than Barry Bonds, I might add. 9 times he led the league. 9 times he led the league in OPS plus. 5 seasons were lost to military service. And not just 5 seasons, 3 of those seasons were during his prime. Can you imagine Ted Williams in the middle of World War II batting against all those guys that were just in the major leagues to fill it out? Insane. 123.1 WAR, which is higher than Rickey Henderson, much lower than Barry Bonds. However, I do think Ted Williams, the WAR stat, you can debate whatever that means or whatnot, but I think I'm going to exclude it when I say Ted Williams versus Barry Bonds. 2-time MVP, and most importantly, the last player to hit 400 in the major leagues. Is anybody got to ever do it again? I don't know. I hope so. It'd be nice to see, but hopefully I want it to be some guy that's like a big name guy today, like Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, one of those guys. I think that'd be kind of cool. But if somebody does it that's maybe not a huge name, that's fine too. But Ted Williams, by far, my number 1 choice for left field. I looked at him for a bit and then I just kind of subtly make the choice. I thought, hey, Ted Williams, number 1 left fielder of all time, can't be beat. Even if his comparison, Barry Bonds, hasn't beat in some regards of like stealing bases, or maybe he was better defensively. To me, left field is one of those positions where your defensive capabilities are overshadowed by your offensive capabilities. And that's what your left fielder should be. He should be able to be a primary bat. I mean, it's good to be a good defensive outfielder in left field. I understand that, but I think when you have a value of your team, the offensive value of your left fielder far outweighs his defensive prowess. So that's why I put Ted Williams as number 1. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think down there below. I appreciate it. So next time we will do another list, hopefully sooner than later. Take care.